If you're a creator of any kind, you've been promised the ultimate shortcut to get a steady stream of clients virtually on demand, and all you have to do is grow an audience of a few thousand fans. I know this because I've personally posted on Instagram over 1,500 times and grown an audience over 120,000, and I was promised the same thing too. So since around 2017, being IG famous as a photographer was kind of like the holy grail of success, and it was because, to be honest, up until recently, the followers actually meant something. But now there's just so much competition driving down the rates, people don't really respond as well to influencer ads, and brands are finding out that they can get talented people to shoot for free in exchange for product. So the question is not only are influencers dead, but is it even worth growing an audience anymore? So in this video, I want to show you why growing an audience the traditional influencer way is not nearly as effective as it used to be, why it's actually a huge waste of time and will probably burn you out, and ultimately what the better strategy is if you want to make consistent income.
But in order to understand why influencers are becoming less and less relevant today, we first need to take a trip back in time.
So back in the mid to late 2010s, as long as you had an audience and decent work, you were virtually guaranteed to get jobs. Why? Well, there was far more competition, so it was much easier for brands to find you, especially if you owned a niche like travel. And at the time, the algorithm actually prioritized good photography and they had the chronological timeline, so as long as you were constantly posting good work, you could get a ton of organic reach. It was also relatively easy to pitch just based off your audience size because at the time, having over 100K followers was considered pretty rare, so it was kind of an indicator of success and status. And don't forget about the relative ease of growing an audience and getting engagement, because at the time, all you had to do is post consistently good work and use some of the big hashtags, and chances were pretty high that you were going to get a lot of engagement. But probably the biggest appeal of the influencer marketing industry, at least for brands, was that when they would hire photography influencers, not only were they hiring a really good photographer like they had in the past, but they also had immediate access to a very large audience of highly engaged people who trust this person's recommendation. So it was kind of a 2-for-1 type of deal for them, and it worked really well until it didn't. And it's really just because of one major flaw in the business model. So influencer marketing has always been a form of interruption marketing, meaning that people would see ads as they were just casually scrolling, but they weren't really looking to buy something. And because of this, the conversion rates on influencer ads were always significantly lower than something like Google ads, where people were actually searching with intent. And over the last few years, a lot of brands have started waking up to this. And it's why over the past few years, you've seen the rates for influencer posts significantly dropping, or brands not even being willing to pay at all. And the primary reason for this is that the original main selling point of influencer marketing was that brands could reach a very large audience for a relatively low cost. I mean, think about it. These companies were used to spending money on big budget campaigns for like TV or billboards or all these general advertising campaigns. But the problem was, yes, you could reach a large audience, but you didn't really know who you were going to hit because all kinds of people watch TV. So you can't really hit them with a targeted message. So it ends up becoming just kind of a general ad. But if they could just pay a fraction of the rates that they were paying for traditional advertising, reach a very large audience, all with a specific aligned interest, then that seemed like a slam dunk. But everything changed around 2020 because so many more people wanted to become influencers with the rise of TikTok. They were posting more sponsored posts. As a result, people were just flooded with these types of ads and they became numb to them, meaning that they just weren't as effective. And as engagement was declining and reach was declining, that meant that conversions on ads were ultimately declining. And on top of all of that, Meta wasn't getting a piece of any of the influencer marketing pie. And they didn't like that because people were using their platform to make money. So they had to clap back by making influencers put a sponsored tag on every sponsored post. And it's pretty well known that when you put a sponsored tag on a post on Instagram, the reach just absolutely tanks, meaning that the ad is virtually useless. And because of all of that, instead of companies paying say $5,000 to some bigger influencer like they used to, they'd rather just get a bunch of smaller influencers, essentially round up the same amount of reach, but get them all to post for free or extremely cheap. But the real issue wasn't even all that. It was actually just the business model itself. But in order to understand why the business model is so flawed, we need to break down the customer journey. So most customers are going to go through 3 distinct phases before they actually buy anything. So the first step is awareness, and this is just making a stranger aware that a product or brand exists. So this is the goal of most ads, most viral content, most influencer posts, and it's great for getting eyeballs, but there's a problem because just because somebody understands that a product exists doesn't mean that they're going to buy it. I mean, think about it. When's the last time you saw an influencer sponsor post for something over $100 that you immediately went and bought? You probably didn't, because convincing someone to drop a couple $100, let alone 1,000 plus on a product from one single post is next to impossible today, because people have just been duped by so many low quality products in the past that they're more skeptical about ads, or even if it is a high quality product, they're just so numb to seeing so many ads that it becomes so hard to stand out, and they're not going to buy just off of one post. But let's say in this situation that you did decide to buy the product, but it wasn't after just seeing that one ad. So what did you actually do? Well, you probably saw the ad and then you either clicked on their website or you clicked on their Instagram page and you started scrolling through the content. You watched a few reels, you looked at some of the pictures, maybe you scrolled through some carousels. Eventually you thought, this is pretty cool, let me go to their website. You watched a demo video, you scrolled through some of the lifestyle content, maybe you did some competitor research and looked at the reviews, and then you bought. So the real problem with influencer marketing is that conversions happen as a result of the nurturing phase and not as a result of just making someone aware a product exists. And what I just described here is exactly why influencer marketing is dying. Because yes, even though they can get a bunch of eyeballs on a product, they usually don't do the necessary education piece that is required to convert that random stranger on the internet into someone who actually buys. So even if it's cheaper to get eyeballs or traffic on their product, does that mean that they're going to get those people to buy? Absolutely not. But let's just say that a brand has a huge budget, they can do a ton of influencer posts. There's still even a bigger roadblock. So like I talked about before, just because an influencer has a large audience doesn't mean that that audience is actually going to convert to sales, which means that the brand has to test a bunch of influencers to start seeing results. So when you run traditional Facebook ads or Google ads, they're going to continue running until you stop paying for them, right? And yes, you're going to hit ad fatigue at a certain point, but typically the lifespan of an ad is at least a few months. But with influencer marketing, the posts are virtually useless after 24 hours because Instagram just doesn't show them anymore. So you have to get all of your conversions within those first 24 hours. If you want to continue getting conversions, well, you got to do more and more influencer posts, which means a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, because even if they're not paying them, they're actually paying them in product and shipping costs. But if their entire content strategy is just focused on getting eyeballs and not educating the client, well, it's kind of like pouring water through an empty glass. I mean, you're not really retaining anything, but that's actually a great thing for you as a creator, because if brands are already spending money on content marketing anyways, there's actually a better and more effective way to actually retain those customers and make them customers, and there's no audience required on your part. So in other words, you can help a brand put a bottom on this glass so that they can turn the traffic that they're getting into actual customers. So instead of just focusing on building a massive audience and hoping brands will pay you for a one-off post, you need to shift to a system where you can control the entire customer journey, from awareness to nurturing and ultimately to conversion, which will allow you to get on retainer, which means that you'll have more consistent income, you'll be able to charge a lot more, and ultimately you'll have more freedom. So the best way for creators to work with brands, in my opinion, is not by becoming an influencer, it's actually by becoming a content strategist. So in other words, you're someone who helps brands create content that not only attracts their ideal customer, but also moves that customer towards making a purchase. So think about it this way. Why do brands hire influencers to begin with? I mean, yes, they have a big audience, but more importantly, that audience trusts what they recommend, or at least they should. So really, brands want to take advantage of the trust that the influencers have already built, which makes selling their product a whole lot easier. But what if you could help turn a brand into its own influencer? One that not only attracts the attention of its ideal audience, but actually engages the people to the point where they want to follow the account, engage with it, and actually send it to their friends. So when they do finally post some ad content every once in a while, people go absolutely nuts for it because they love the account, they love the brand, and it's not some random influencer post that is just kind of out of the blue. It's literally in complete alignment with everything that they love. Don't you think that they would be willing to pay that same $5,000 for a content package that they can use multiple times in multiple places, that not only attracts the attention of somebody one time, but also nurtures them over time and ultimately makes them buy? I mean, I know for a fact that the answer is yes. But if you want to land clients like this, you can't just sell them on content, you have to sell them on results. But if you don't have any results yet, or you don't know how to get results, then watch this video here where I show you exactly how to do it.